What's going on, YouTube? This is Jetfire back again, and welcome to the first episode of Jet Talks. I am so excited to have everyone here and to finally be making this series. A little bit about Jet Talks is just me, myself, and I, Jetfire, your host, talking about whatever I want. Whatever is at the time something that I wanted to say, you know what, let's sit down and talk about it, right? Today's video, we're going to be talking about PRESTINNI. How did this turn into this? Alright, so we're going to be going over the history of PRESTINNI really quickly, and then we're going to be talking about how he became the substitute for the world champion team, Atlanta Faze, right? Because it doesn't make sense to me, right? I like PRESTINNI, don't get me wrong, but, like, come on, dude, like, he's either the luckiest player in the world, or something's up, right? And I think you know what I mean. And I don't want to jump to conclusions. I don't want to point fingers, but like let's look at his at his history, right? PRESTINNI really like made his like debut as like a player back in IW, right? He played in Black Ops 4 a little bit, but in IW is really where people like pointed him out and was like, wow, he's good. Like, the team was Gunless, PRESTINNI, Arcides, and Silly in IW, and they won that event. And I remember specifically PRESTINNI like yelling at the crowd, and be like, yeah, what's up, you know, I'm a no-name and I'm doing really well. And that was awesome. It was so good seeing, it's always good seeing new players kind of break into the competitive scene, right? So you go through Infinite Warfare, and at one point Gunless was like, I don't want to play for you guys anymore. I just don't want to. So he benched himself like a little baby. Where I love Gunless, but like, we'll get into that. It's another video. So they pick up Clayster, and obviously that's a big jump, right? Having Silly, Arcides, PRESTINNI, and Clayster all part of one team for IW. And one of my prized moments during competitive Call of Duty was actually being able to attend the Infinite Warfare Champs. It was in Florida at the time. I'm in New York. Allowed me to just kind of go down. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Being such a competitive Call of Duty fan, and then being able to sit down with like-minded people who all rooted for the different teams, and watching it on the big screen with beer in hand and G Fuel in the other. Don't recommend it. It's not no. I'm just like shaking, hyped up, and I'm just drunk as well. Woo, optic. But I met Arcides and PRESTINNI. I remember being at some restaurant. I don't know where. It could have been like Wahlburgers or something like that, right? But I remember seeing Arcides and PRESTINNI there, and it was amazing. It's like, wow, look, I to this day I love Arcides. Arcides, the fucking man, right? But it was so cool seeing them, and I remember, after Infinite Warfare Champs, walking out, you saw Optic 1, absolutely just amazing time seeing all of those games play. And you see PRESTINNI outside, and he's crying. And you could feel, you know, his sorrow. You knew that he was sad that he had done so well this year, his breakout year, and he came so close. He came, what, 3rd in IW Champs? World Champs, 5th, 6th. Yeah. And I remember going up to him and being like, you know, telling him, hey man, it's fine. Like, you did a great job. You had a great year. You know, just head up for the next year. And World War II, they continued with the team. Clayster, Arcides, Silly, PRESTINNI. And they didn't really make too many waves. It wasn't really a good year for them. I mean, they got 4th at World War II Champs. All right, well, I'll give him to that. Now, it wasn't until Black Ops 4 that this whole video is even a thing, right? So in Black Ops 4, they changed to 5v5. And PRESTINNI's teammates on E United was PRESTINNI, Arcides, Clayster, aBeZy, and Simp. What? Like, if you said that roster now, looking back, right? Holy shit! What a star-studded roster that is, and then they won Black Ops 4 Champs. E United won Black Ops 4 Champs with that team, and you know what happened the year after? We had MW, And with MW came franchising. And something interesting happened. In the first year of franchising, from the team who won champs that year, 2 of them went to FaZe, Simp and Abizi. Placer went to Empire, and Arcides went to Optic. What happened to Prestini? Why didn't we pick up Prestini? Why was he one of the last people to be picked up? It's because part of me thinks that if Prestini didn't have that kind of a roster, he probably wouldn't have won Black Ops 4 champs. I'm not saying he didn't do his part, but I definitely think that if you put a different teammate in Prestini's place, they probably still had a really good chance of winning. So MW happens, and 4 of the 5 players get onto some of the best teams in the world, especially for that whole season. FaZe and Dallas Empire, rip, rest in peace, Dallas Empire. And then Prestini got picked up from the last team, the Florida Mutineers, and the Prestini, what seemed like to be on a scraps team for whatever string 2 players that were left. I believe the team was Prestini, Havoc, Skies, Mox, and Frosty, right? And I actually kind of liked that team. I thought it was a pretty good team. I like Havoc. I like Frosty. Again, I like Prestini. And I think that this team, more than anything, really allowed Prestini to come into his own. I think that it made it so Prestini couldn't lean on anyone, that he really had to come into his own as a player and prove that he deserves to be up there. And you know what? He even went against his own brother for the Chicago Huntsmen, and they beat them. And Prestini got up and he just started screaming at his brother. It was one of the most intense battles. It was one of the craziest things that had happened, seeing the twins finally be apart, and they battled it out, and the one that didn't get on the star-studded roster won. That was awesome. I was so happy for Prestini for putting this together and showing that he deserves to be there. So we fast forward. Gunless was on that team as well for the Huntsmen, and lo and behold, he has some issues with everyone. So they bench him off the roster. And who did they pick up? Prestini. And you know what? Part of me thought 2 things. One, you could have probably picked up someone different. I'm not saying you could probably pick up a simp, because that's not going to happen. But I think you probably could have picked up someone else. But on the other side, Arcides has played with Prestini before, right? So you put the twins back together, hoping that that's going to be really good. And with how Prestini was playing at that time, I guess you could say, that's why they picked them up, right? That all right, he'll be good. He will be able to hold his own on this team. Cool. All of a sudden, Prestini and Arcides are both on Optic. Well, technically, they're the Chicago Huntsmen. So he was technically never on Optic, right? But then, there we go again. Somehow, Prestini ends up in this star-studded roster of Formal and Envoy, Scump, Arcides, and himself. And I feel like things went back to Black Ops 4. I think that he leaned on them a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, I think that he was first entry sub, so that way he was getting into more gunfights than normal, and he was kind of being like the front man for the ARs and for Scump to help finish those kills. And I get it. You can't 100% say anything on say everything based off of stats. I'm not. But it lives free in my head. COD Champs, seeing Optic Gaming versus Chicago Huntsmen, 5-5, map 5, round 11. They're on defense, and Prestini runs up the left side, goes through Graveyard, jumps right on top of the little piece where he can go onto the steps into middle, and he just gets decimated because the full team is running through mid. Prestini had just waited 5 seconds and not just sprinted headlessly, it wouldn't have just been a 4v5 in the first 10 seconds of the round. And that was probably one of the stupidest things I could have seen him do, and I was so mad at that. Obviously, MW didn't end well for Chicago Huntsmen, and things happened. Prestini left, and the Prestini going into Cold War was, again, part of a Tier 2 roster. Now, don't get me wrong, when I did see it, had potential. He was part of Seattle Surge with Octane, Gunless, and Looney. I like Looney, although I guess he's not as good as what he was in Advanced Warfare. Octane is Octane, right? Amazing. Gunless, they have some history together playing in IW, and it didn't really go so well. They did a lot better when it was a LAN, but again, it wasn't their year. They didn't do well, and at this point, it's been 2 years where Prestini hadn't done anything. Prestini hadn't, his economy as a player, he wasn't getting first pick. He wasn't getting onto a star-studded roster again. Not now. So he leaves, and he's a free agent going into World War II, Vanguard, right? And the teams start happening, and with every year, more 18-year-olds are coming. They're trying to come up from the challenger scene and go into the pro league. So you have so many different players to choose from. Every year, there's more and more and more, and it's hard to say that you wouldn't at least look at the other challengers players before picking up Prestini, right? There's 100 different sub players, so a lot of the rosters got confirmed. And Prestini was nowhere to be found. And there was a really, really, really good chance that Prestini was going to play in Challengers this year. And I think that, man, I'm telling you, Challengers, I feel like, is just the ring of death. It's just a pool of death. Everyone's just fighting left and right. You don't know who's cheating. You don't know who's not. There isn't that much support for challenges right now, but it's the only way to really show that you're worthy of going into a competitive team. And to be honest, I'm sure it went through Prestini's head of, can I still do this as a career? Right? The amount of money. I mean, how much money did he really win from his 2 years? Right? He won $30,000 and $50,000 playing the Seattle tournament, playing the Atlanta Faze tournament. Champs, he won $600K because he was on Chicago. He won $10K in Seattle Surge, $10K. So he didn't really win that much. I mean, don't get me wrong, $10K is a lot of money. But, in comparison of what you could be winning, millions and millions of dollars, especially after winning COD Champs in Black Ops 4, I'm sure a lot of players have in their head of like, how much longer can I do this if I don't have a steady income? And I wasn't sure what really was going to happen with Prestini. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this happens. You tell me how one of the worst players of the 2021 Cold War season gets picked up by the team that won COD Champs this year, Atlanta Faze, one of the most perfect teams to ever see in Call of Duty, and 1 year off of becoming a dynasty. Explain that to me. Explain to me how there's all of these players, right? And I understand that they had Sib as their substitute player, and Sib didn't do anything on that roster except sit on his butt and collect 50K, right? 50K is the minimum salary for sub players. Just sit on a bench, God forbid something happens. And it's been very rare that we've seen sub spots kind of like really swap from the main team when the main team's really good. Only time I've really seen like it being an emergency was in Black Ops 4 when... I think it was Black Ops 4. Yeah, it was. When 100 Thieves was on, and I believe Priesta was kind of feeling sick, so Pharaoh came sprinting and played for them. But, like, come on, man. Are you kidding me? They got Prestini, they chose Prestini over everyone else. The number one roster in the world right now. You tell me. Here's my hot take. Prestini's brother is on Faze. Arcides is a great player. He's played with Simp. He's played with the BZ before. I think he's played with Celium. You gotta believe that, like, one of them, probably his brother, kind of went to someone and said, can we take care of my brother for this year? You know, let him get on his feet. You know, and you know, if that happened, RC is a good brother. But for Prestini to take that is the easy way out. That is the most bullshit, easy way out for him to continue his career without showing the world that he can't do it anymore. And this then turns to what the league has been doing since MW. In MW, Dallas Empire won, and all of them got rings, and something different happened. Their sub player, who was Tommy at the time, loved Tommy. Shout out to Tommy. He follows me on Twitter. I love you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate you very much. Tommy got a ring. Tommy got a championship ring by being a sub player for the team that won. Faze won Cold War, and Sib got a ring. Now, I know that you probably can't 100% count the fact that, you know, you look at the leaderboard of people who have championship rings who actually earned it, right? You have Clayster and you have Karma up top with 3 rings. And Crimsix now, right? Yeah. And then you have people like Sib now on that list, technically, and Tommy, technically, on that list. Because even though they weren't part of the primary roster, they have the physical item. They have a ring. It's there. So that means they're a ring holder. Tommy was the first European player to ever get a ring. Technicality or not. Cool. Prestini just got picked up by Faze, one of the top teams to ever play. And again, Faze is en route, if they do well this year, to be considered a dynasty. If Faze dominate this year and they win champs again, or come and, you know, if they win champs again, they kind of have to win champs again to be considered a dynasty. Does that mean that Prestini is going to have 2 rings? That's not... Really? Look, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. It's just one of those things that I feel like he's either the luckiest player in the world just because, like, he just got blessed, and I get it. But, like, man, like, talk about the easy way out. Not have, you know, he can sit on his ass, play tournaments all day, probably build a brand a little bit in streaming, not have to worry about anything because he was put onto the sub spot. But the idea is for him to show off these competitive players, to show the world that he can play it with the big boys, that he can compete and be on that top level. And if he's not gonna, you know, his economy for next year is non-existent. You know, he might play challengers. I doubt it. He might make content for Faze, since everyone in Faze is kind of awkward. But, like, man, I can't believe that Prestini got on Faze. Like, dude, it just doesn't make sense to me. Again, tell me what you guys think down below in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in to the first JetTalks. I'm very happy to start doing this with everyone. And with that, it's Jetfire signing out. Have a nice day, everyone. Some magic.